Before we dive into today's story, I wanted to take a quick moment to talk about this channel. We're a community dedicated to respectfully remembering the victims and uncovering the facts behind true crime cases and unsolved disappearances. If you value this approach and want to support respectful storytelling, becoming a subscriber is the best way to never miss an update. If you find our work meaningful, leaving a like helps immensely in bringing these important stories to a wider audience. In the comments, we encourage you to share messages of remembrance for the victims or thoughts on why it is important to keep these cases alive. Let's keep the discussion respectful and focused on the facts. Your support is what allows me to continue this work with the care and dedication it deserves. Now, let's get into the case. In the early morning hours of the 6th of July, 2012, in the quiet town of Star City, West Virginia, 16-year-old Skylar Neese slipped out of her bedroom window. To her parents, Dave and Mary Neese, she was asleep in her bed. In reality, she had told them she was staying at a friend's house, while telling her friends she had her parents' permission to go out. This web of minor teenage deception would form the initial, frustrating fog around a case that was about to become a parent's worst nightmare. Skylar was a student at University High School in Morgantown, known for her bright personality, love of music, and tight-knit group of friends, which included Sheila, Eddy, and Shoaf. When Mary Neese went to wake her daughter on the morning of the 6th of July, she found an empty bed. Skylar's purse, money, and essential personal items were left behind. Her car was parked outside. The screen to her bedroom window was removed, and leaning against the house, panic set in immediately. The Neese family reported Skylar missing to the Star City Police Department that same morning. The initial assumption, given the circumstances, leaned heavily towards a runaway scenario. A teenager perhaps meeting someone she'd met online or engaging in an impulsive act. However, as detectives began their investigation, that theory quickly began to strain. Skylar was described as a responsible teen with a good relationship with her family. She had a job she enjoyed and was actively planning for college. Most tellingly, her cell phone, a vital lifeline for any teenager, was left behind, turned off and tucked under her bedroom pillow. This single detail struck her family and investigators as profoundly out of character. A runaway might leave a note or take money, but they almost always take their phone. The investigation's first major step was a forensic analysis of Skylar's computer and social media accounts. Detectives from the West Virginia State Police, who soon joined the case, hoped to find clues about who she might have been planning to meet. They discovered she had been communicating with her two best friends, Sheila, Eddy, and Shoaf, late into the night of the 5th of July via text messages and social media. The friends claimed Skylar had mentioned sneaking out to meet an unspecified someone, but could provide no name or details. Their accounts of that night, while cooperative on the surface, would later be scrutinized for subtle inconsistencies. As days turned into weeks, the community rallied. Search parties combed the dense woods and rural areas around Star City and Morgantown. Skylar's face appeared on flyers, billboards, and national missing persons databases. Her family made tearful pleas on television, begging for her safe return. Yet, no credible sightings emerged. No financial activity occurred on her accounts. The digital trail went cold after the late-night texts. The theory of a voluntary disappearance was crumbling under the weight of Skylar's complete and utter severance from her life. The investigation was at a standstill, with no body, no crime scene, and no clear suspect. The focus began to turn inward, towards the people who claimed to have spoken to her last, and towards the unsettling possibility that the secret to her disappearance was not hidden with a stranger online, but much, much closer to home. As the search for Skylar Neese stretched from weeks into months, The investigation entered a painstaking phase of digital forensic analysis and behavioral observation. While publicly the case remained a missing persons investigation, detectives from the West Virginia State Police increasingly focused on Skylar's inner circle, particularly her two best friends, Sheila Eddy and Rachel Shoaf. The girls had been among the last to communicate with Skylar and were initially cooperative, participating in searches and public vigils. However, their behavior and digital footprints began to tell a different story. Detectives meticulously reconstructed the text message and social media timeline from the night of the 5th of July -6 2012. While Eddy and Shoaf claimed Skylar was excited about meeting someone new, the actual message content showed nothing of the sort. More telling was the activity after Skylar's disappearance. Both Eddy and Shoaf continued to post on social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook. Their posts, however, raised eyebrows. Instead of desperate pleas for information or expressions of grief, their updates were often mundane, flippant, or focused on their own social lives. They made inside jokes with each other and posted lyrics to songs that investigators found callous given the circumstances. This perceived lack of appropriate emotion was noted by both detectives and members of the online community who were closely following the case. The most significant digital red flag emerged from a platform called Twitter Phone, which allowed users to post tweets via voice call. Forensic analysts discovered that Skylar Neese's Twitter account had been accessed, and a tweet posted after she was last seen. The tweet read, "I'm finally happy. I'm finally going. I can't wait to see y'all's faces when you realize I'm smarter than you think." This message, seemingly from Skylar after she vanished, was immediately suspicious. It suggested either that Skylar was alive and taunting her family, a theory that conflicted with all other evidence, or, more likely, that someone else had accessed her account to create a false narrative that she had run away willingly. The digital evidence pointed strongly toward the latter. Concurrently, the behavior of Sheila Eddy and Rachel Shoaf in real life began to unravel. Friends and acquaintances reported to police that the two girls seemed to be distancing themselves from Skylar's family and the community effort. They were seen together constantly, their bond appearing to intensify, but their interactions with others regarding the case were described as cold or dismissive. Skylar's parents, Dave and Mary Neese, grew deeply troubled by the girls' demeanor. The emotional disconnect was palpable. The police, while lacking physical evidence, were building a circumstantial picture of deception. The breaking point came from within the duo's own ranks. In December 2012, nearly 6 months after Skylar's disappearance, Rachel Shoaf was admitted to a psychiatric facility. The stress of maintaining the secret, coupled with the intense police and community scrutiny, had become unbearable for her. During her treatment, she began to make cryptic statements to medical staff that suggested involvement in Skylar's disappearance. This information was relayed to law enforcement. In January 2013, confronted by detectives in the presence of her mother and an attorney, Rachel Shoaf's facade collapsed. She confessed that Skylar Neese was dead and provided a horrifying revelation: she and Sheila Eddy were responsible. She stated they had picked Skylar up that night, driven her to a remote location in Greene County, Pennsylvania, and killed her. This confession shattered the case wide open and transformed it from a missing persons investigation into a double homicide probe. Rachel Shoaf's confession in January 2013 provided the horrifying narrative that had been missing for 6 months. In a series of detailed statements to West Virginia State Police investigators, with her attorney present, Shoaf described the premeditated plot and its brutal execution. According to her account, the motive was not a dramatic fight or a secret betrayal, but a chillingly mundane desire. She and Sheila Eddy had simply grown tired of Skylar Neese. They found her annoying and felt she was holding them back. They decided to get rid of her and meticulously planned the act. Shoaf stated that on the night of the 5th of July, 2012, she and Eddy lured Skylar out of her house under the pretense of hanging out. They picked her up in Eddy's car. Instead of going to a party or a friend's house, they drove to a remote, wooded area in nearby Greene County, Pennsylvania, a location chosen specifically for its isolation. Once there, Shoaf confessed, the two girls attacked Skylar. They stabbed her repeatedly. Shoaf's description of the violence was graphic and left no doubt about the intent to kill. After ensuring Skylar was dead, they dug a shallow grave with a small shovel they had brought and buried her body there. They then drove back to West Virginia, vowing to keep the secret forever. Guided by the specifics of Shoaf's confession, law enforcement from West Virginia and Pennsylvania organized a search party for the remains. On the 16th of January 2013, in a densely wooded area off Dutch Run Road in Greene County, searchers located a disturbed patch of ground. Excavation revealed human remains consistent with Skylar Neese's description. Dental records later provided a positive identification. The long, agonizing search for Skylar was over, confirming the worst fears of her family and community. With Shoaf's confession and the recovery of the body, the legal focus turned to securing her cooperation against Sheila Eddy. Shoaf agreed to plead guilty to second-degree murder in exchange for her full testimony against Eddy. This plea deal was critical for the prosecution, as it provided an eyewitness to the crime from within the conspiracy. On the 17th of April 2013, Rachel Shoaf appeared in court and formally pleaded guilty. She was subsequently sentenced to 30 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after serving 10 years. The net now tightened decisively around Sheila Eddy, with her co-conspirator having confessed, detailed the crime, and agreed to testify. Eddy's position became legally untenable. On May 1, 2013, based on the evidence provided by Shoaf and the corroborating forensic findings, Sheila Eddy was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and conspiracy in the death of Skylar Neese. She was held without bond. The two teenagers who had stood alongside Skylar's family at vigils were now both in custody, one as a confessed murderer turned state's witness, the other facing the prospect of a trial and a life sentence. With Rachel Shoaf's plea deal secured, the state's case against Sheila Eddy moved forward in Monongalia County Circuit Court. The prosecution, led by prosecutor Marcia Ashdown, built its strategy around Shoaf's eyewitness testimony, the digital evidence that showed planning and deception, and the forensic recovery of Skylar Neese's remains based on Shoaf's directions. Eddy, now 17, was charged as an adult with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and conspiracy to commit murder. Her defense team faced the formidable challenge of defending a client whose sole accomplice was prepared to testify against her in detail. As pretrial proceedings began, Eddy's defense attorneys explored potential avenues. Given the overwhelming evidence, a confession from her partner, the location of the body, and a clear motive established through their own statements, pursuing an outright not guilty verdict at trial was seen as a high-risk strategy with little chance of success. The defense's primary goal shifted to avoiding a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole, which a first-degree murder conviction would carry. In September 2013, just months before her trial was set to begin, Sheila Eddy appeared in court and changed her plea. She pleaded guilty to the charge of first-degree murder. In a negotiated agreement with prosecutors, she also pleaded guilty to kidnapping and conspiracy. In exchange for her guilty plea, the state agreed not to seek a no mercy recommendation, which would have bound the judge to a life sentence without parole. Instead, the sentencing decision would be left to the discretion of Judge Philip Gaujo. The sentencing hearing was held on the 21st of January 2014. It was a highly emotional proceeding. Members of Skylar Neese's family delivered powerful victim impact statements. Her father, Dave Neese, spoke directly to Eddy, who sat with her head bowed, and stated, "You didn't just kill Skylar. You killed our entire family." He detailed the profound and unending grief they endured. The family's statements painted a picture of betrayal so deep it was incomprehensible. Prior to sentencing, Judge Gojot heard arguments. The prosecution emphasized the premeditated, cold-blooded nature of the crime, the lengthy cover-up, and the need for justice. The defense, while not disputing the facts, argued for rehabilitation, citing Eddy's age, her expression of remorse, and her potential for change. They presented psychological evaluations and asked for a sentence that would allow for the possibility of parole one day. After considering the arguments, Judge Philip Gojot addressed the court. He noted the heinous, vicious, and senseless nature of the crime and the unfathomable betrayal of friendship. He stated that while the law allowed for discretion, the severity of the act demanded the maximum penalty under the plea agreement. Judge Gojot then sentenced Sheila Eddy to life in prison with the possibility of parole after serving 15 years on the murder charge. He added consecutive sentences of 30 years for kidnapping and 5 years for conspiracy, bringing the total sentence to life plus 35 years. The parole eligibility on the life sentence meant that, in theory, Eddy could seek parole in 2029, though the consecutive sentences make her ultimate release highly unlikely. She was remanded to the custody of the West Virginia Division of Corrections. The sentencings of Rachel Shoaf and Sheila Eddy brought a definitive legal conclusion to the murder of Skylar Neese, but for her family and the community, the journey through grief and seeking meaning was just beginning. Dave and Mary Neese were left to navigate a loss compounded by unimaginable betrayal. In the years that followed, they channeled their pain into advocacy, establishing the Skylar Neese Foundation. The foundation's mission is multifaceted: to support other families of missing children, to educate teens and parents about the dangers of bullying and toxic friendships, and to promote legislative changes such as Skylar's Law in West Virginia, which aims to improve protocols for reporting and investigating missing juveniles. Both Shoaf and Eddy began serving their sentences in West Virginia correctional facilities. Rachel Shoaf, eligible for parole in 2023 after her 10-year minimum, has had parole hearings. Her requests have been met with strong opposition from the Neese family and the community, and as of this writing, she remains incarcerated. Sheila Eddy, with a longer minimum term, will not be eligible for parole on her life sentence until 2029. The consecutive sentences for kidnapping and conspiracy make her eventual release, even if parole were granted on the murder charge, a distant and uncertain prospect. The correctional system has reported no major disciplinary issues from either inmate, but they remain largely out of the public eye. The case of Skylar Neese left a deep scar on the community of Star City and Morgantown. It forced parents, educators, and teens to confront the dark potential of adolescent relationships gone terribly wrong. The notion that mean girl behavior could escalate to premeditated murder was a shocking revelation. The case is often cited in discussions about teen mental health, the pressures of social dynamics, and the importance of paying attention to subtle changes in behavior. For Skylar's friends and classmates, the trauma was profound. They had mourned a missing friend, only to learn she was murdered by 2 other friends within their circle. The trust within that social network was shattered. The case serves as a grim, enduring lesson about the masks people can wear and the secrets they can keep. Skylar Neese is remembered not for how she died, but for her vibrant spirit, her love for music and writing, and the potential that was stolen. Memorials, including a scholarship in her name, keep her memory alive. Her story is a cautionary tale that resonates far beyond West Virginia, a stark reminder of the need for open communication, vigilance, and the courage to question even those closest to us when something feels wrong. The ultimate tragedy lies not just in the act of murder, but in the chilling simplicity of the motive, a friendship deemed inconvenient, erased with unspeakable violence. In loving memory of Skylar Neese, a life taken too soon, a name that will not be forgotten. May her memory live on in our hearts and remind us of the value of every life. Gone too early, remembered forever. As we conclude today's story, let's once again remember the lives affected. If you found this exploration meaningful and want to support respectful storytelling about real cases, please consider leaving a like. It helps more than you know. To stay updated with our deep dives into unresolved histories, hit that subscribe button, and in the comments below, feel free to share a thought in memory or why you believe remembering these stories matters. Thank you for watching and for being a part of this thoughtful community.